Assalamu alaikum, this is Dr. Monel Idrisi, author of the Muslim Narcissist book and empowerment coach for Muslims. In today's podcast, I'll be speaking about losing your faith during and after narcissistic abuse. And I want to speak about this today because it's so important to address how and why people lose their faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stop practicing altogether. So there are some people who stop practicing, and there are also many people who are deciding to leave Islam. So they're either becoming atheist or they're joining another religion. So inshallah, this podcast will break down all these faith issues and how people get to these stages. And inshallah, at the end of the podcast, I will give you some tips on how to elevate your faith and make it grow stronger, and how to make full use of your experience with narcissists so you can heal. So inshallah, this podcast will be an empowering one for you that will help you to become better Muslims and believers than you were before the narcissistic abuse. So just before I jump into this, I'd like to kindly ask you, as always, to like the podcast if you find it helpful. Do share it with other people whom you feel could really benefit from this, especially if they are struggling with being Muslims and staying Muslim. And you can click on the subscribe button or sign up to the newsletter on the website to be notified about any news or new podcast releases. And if you need one-to-one counselling and coaching, there is a link below where you can submit an application form, or you can email me directly. My email is also in the description box. So let's jump into this podcast. Now, many of you might already know that my PhD was about this particular subject. So I studied why lots of people leave Islam after they converted to it. And the primary reason was because of Muslim narcissists. So it's all the horrible experiences that people go through with awful people who claim to be religious or who appear to be religious that makes them lose their faith and pushes them out of Islam. So if you're interested in reading the thesis, I have included a link below in the description box to where you can download it for free from the Kingston University website. And it's actually the experiences of these reverts that inspired me to write my book as well and to start this podcast. So subhanAllah, my life journey completely changed because, like I mentioned before in a previous podcast, I used to be a royal event and wedding photographer. So coming across these reverts, subhanAllah, changed my direction in life, and that's why reverts are super special to me. And I pray inshallah that anyone who listens to this podcast who has lost their faith or is losing their faith will find their way back to it inshallah. Especially those who sacrificed a lot to convert to the religion they fell in love with. If you've lost your love for Islam because of the way people have treated you, especially when the abuse that was inflicted on you was done in the name of Islam and in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this podcast is for you. Please do listen until the very end. So let's start with speaking about the mission of narcissistic individuals. I've spoken about this many times before, but I'll keep repeating it until people fully understand what's going on. So the primary goal of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths and evil jinn is to destroy your faith. Okay, they want to take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so you are lost and misguided like they are. Okay, they want you to be deviants like they are. This is the primary goal of shayateen al-ins and shayateen al-jinn. They are both demons in different forms. Okay, so the satanic mission of making people lose their faith can be intentional or non-intentional. So some narcissists might do things to drive you out of Islam without realizing that's what they're doing, only because they're enjoying the power and authority that they hold. Okay, so their intention is not to drive you out, but their actions are doing that. And then you have people who are intentionally doing that. These are people who are aware of their satanic mission and they want to corrupt good people. They want to drive people out of Islam, and they do that with abuse. These are the malignant narcissists. Okay? The ones who do it unintentionally tend to be the narcissistic man-children and women-children who manipulate you with their incorrect and poor understanding of Islam. But they don't intend to drive you out. They just find pleasure and power in being able to manipulate people who are ignorant about their rights. So it actually works in their favour when you are religious and practicing, and when you do want to become the best wife or the best husband, the best son or daughter, and so on, because that's what they have leverage over. They know how to guilt trip you and manipulate you and gaslight you. And whenever Islam or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is brought into the subject, you panic, because you are brainwashed to believe that if they are not happy with you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to be happy with you. So can you see how these people wouldn't drive you out of Islam when they benefit from your faith so much? It's their actions that cause you to become so exhausted from pleasing horrible people in the name of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's how you gradually start to lose your faith. On the other hand, malignant narcissists may know that you have very strong faith, and they end up envying that. Okay, they end up hating you for it. So they will destroy every good thing about you until you lose all that faith. That's done out of envy. And it's the same satanic envy that Iblis has for human beings. Okay, so the malignant narcissist really gets triggered when he or she lives with someone who has a high level of faith, because you reflect back at them what they don't have. So it's always a constant reminder that they're destined for hell and you're not. So they have to drag you down to their level. And the envy causes you to suffer at their hands while they're in the process of destroying your faith and your empathy and everything good that you have in your life. It could be your career, it could be your relationships with other people, with your family members, it could be your relationship with your own children. They will destroy everything good in your life until you become so depressed like them and you turn into bitter, angry narcissists as well. If you haven't heard it already, go back and listen to podcast number 49. It's called The Narcissist Will Turn You Into a Narcissist Too if you're not aware of their qareen. Okay, so you can turn into a narcissist if you're not careful, and if you don't escape and leave before they completely destroy you. And when they destroy you, they discard you because their mission is complete. That's when you get the narcissistic discard. When they are done with you, their mission from their qareen is complete. Remember, the qareen is a soldier of Iblis. He gives him orders. He gives him orders via the waswas. He or she. This is obviously for both men and women. And when the qareen has fulfilled his mission through the narcissist will discard you and they'll be on to their next victim. That's why malignant narcissists in particular get married very quickly, because they're on to their next victim. So if you stay with a malignant narcissist for too long, you are at high risk of losing your faith, your health, and everything good in your life. Now, I know it's difficult for some people who are stuck in a marriage or in a situation with malignant narcissists, and inshallah, I'm hoping the next podcast will be about this and those who are truly stuck. But if you have a way out and you're already losing your faith and your health by being with someone, even if it's being in your family home with your siblings and your parents, you need to really think about saving this. You've got to save your health. You've got to save your iman. That's the priority above everything else. Okay? If you have to lose everything to save your iman, you'll be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. Okay? Because we only take our iman and our good deeds with us to the grave. Everything else we leave behind. So your iman should always be prioritized in every single situation, even when it's with your parents. Because all narcissists and psychopaths, they prey on the practicing people. Okay, if you are practicing and religious and you're empathic and you fear Allah and you love Allah and you're always doing things to, bring yourself closer to Allah, you are the target in your family. Even if you do the most, even if you are the perfect son, the perfect daughter, the perfect husband, the perfect wife, You will be the target because you have Iman. You are practicing. You are a good, clean, empathic person. Please know this. You will always wonder why people are so horrible to you for no reason. I'm the best of my siblings. I'm the one who helps my parents the most. I'm the one who, cooks and cleans and takes them to their doctor's appointments. Why are they the worst with me? Why is my husband treating me in such a horrible way when I do nothing but obey him and, look after him, and I'm loyal, I'm this, I'm that? Why is he so awful to me? Why is my wife so ungrateful? Why does she keep picking on me? Why does she keep making my life a living hell? It's because you have that light in you. And they can't help it. It's because their demons are irritated by your light. Their qareens are irritated by your light. It annoys them in a way they can't truly understand themselves. Just something about you irritates the hell out of them. And they don't see it usually until after marriage or until you grow up, if you are living in, your family home. They see it when you're a child, and they'll be horrible to you as a child as well. But it's when you step into adulthood and they see that all the programming that they did to crush you and, eradicate your self-worth and self-esteem, it didn't work. You still took that faith with you into adulthood. That's when it gets worse. Narcissistic abuse from family members gets worse when you step into adulthood, because the childhood programming to make you look at yourself a certain way, to make you look at yourself as a naughty child, or a child who's going to hell, a child who's not loved by Allah, a child who's abnormal, problematic, ugly, or even weird, not clever, not smart, doesn't do well at school. All that bullying you got that turned into your childhood programming didn't work. So empathic children actually use that bullying as fuel to get better, and they either don't believe it or they want to use their faith to get out of that mindset. Like, I don't want to be ugly, I don't want to be weird, I don't want to be problematic. And I don't want to believe my family when they tell me that I'm going to hell because I've been naughty. That's fuel that drives them to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and become better as human beings. So they work on everything that they were criticised for. And that's why you get empathic children who are so hardworking. They really make effort in school, and they do well in college and university, and they become so successful in their lives, and they have a glow up as well when they're older. So they might have been the ugly duckling when they were young, but the empath always has a glow up in adulthood. And this glow up is what causes them to be hated even more by their family members, and they never understand why. I have so many clients who come to me saying, my family hate me and I don't know why. I've always been good to them. I'm the one who's reliable. I'm the one who does everything for them. I'm the one who, picks up the pieces of everyone's problems, and I'm always there. I'm the one who didn't get married. I'm the one who babysits everyone's kids. But everyone is so mean and horrible to me. That's the reason why. And sometimes the glow up is not in a materialistic sense. It's more about your achievements in life, things that you've managed to do that they didn't think that you were capable of doing because of your shyness. Maybe you had low self-confidence, and all of a sudden you start doing things that shock them. And this is why they target the empath in the family who rebelled against the childhood programming that they received when they were younger. So if a child grew up as an empath and remained an empath into their young adulthood, they're more likely to stay away from anyone who reminds them of their toxic family members. And it's because they have such a high level of self-awareness that they're able to do this. However, empathic codependents will usually attract someone toxic like their family members, especially their mothers or their fathers, and they will end up marrying people who prey on their success as well. So when this particular person becomes successful, everyone wants a piece of the pie. Everyone feels entitled to it. The parents will feel entitled, the siblings will feel entitled, even your uncles and aunties might feel entitled to your financial success. And all of a sudden, everyone's asking you for money, everyone's asking you for loans, everyone's asking you for charity, and so on. you've now become the goose that lays the golden eggs. So not only do you have faith and drive and ambition, you also have the success, and they have to take that from you. Everyone leeches off you, and you will always attract women who want to leech off you as well. That's why you find so many narcissistic women married to codependent men who are successful. It's because these women know how to manipulate these men and get what they want from them. Because narcissists are usually spoon-fed financial success, or they didn't earn it, or they conned their way through it, or they scammed people to have it, or they got it easily. Okay, narcissists aren't known to be hard workers unless they're malignant. Okay, the malignant narcissists, they know how to make money, but again, it's not in a moral way. When they see someone earn money in a halal way that's moral, in a way they can't, they have to scam people and lie and deceive to get what the codependent or the empath has, it infuriates them and they want to take all your wealth from you. Okay, so be very wary of this. This is how a lot of men lose their iman, because after all that hard work that they've done to make themselves a somebody and to make something of their lives, they are still destroyed by their family members and the people who are meant to love them. So if you're on the straight and narrow, the people in your family or your friendship circle or even in your neighbourhood who are drug dealers or dodgy car salesmen, or people who got their jobs by lying in their CVs, or people who commit tax fraud, or those who only got a job because they had connections. If you're wondering why they don't like you, it's because you lead a clean life. Even if they have so much more wealth than you, even if they have the Lambos and the Bentleys and the nice mansions, they might have all of that, but they still have it in for you. It's because you reflect back at them what they can't do. You lead a moral life and they don't. They know deep inside in their fitrah that all this haram money is going to burn them later. So what do? They overcompensate by going to the mosque and being the akhis, right? The ones who are always at Friday prayer. They're always the ones in da'wah. Okay, but he's a drug dealer. Everyone knows he's a drug dealer. But they put on a religious front to compensate for all the haram money they're earning. And they'll look down on you for not being as religious as them, and they become the narc Salafi akhis. Okay, there are plenty of them who are criminals. They commit all sorts of fraud, but they're always in the masjid. They're always doing something for the community to make themselves feel better, because they're in competition with men who are moral. So when they feel they can have an upper hand, or they're in a better place by acting and looking more religious than those who are moral, they feel better about themselves. And that's when they start to pick on your deen. Akhi, why are you not wearing a thob? And if you're wearing a thob, it's not short enough. And if you have a beard, it's not long enough. And they're picking on you not giving enough charity. They're picking on you not coming to Fajr. They're picking on you for listening to Mufti Mink and for deciding to keep a moustache on your face. Okay, this is what they have leverage on. And they're making you feel like you're not a good Muslim. They look down on you when you're not in the mosque when they're in the mosque, but they're criminals. There are so many criminals who do this. So a lot of people end up losing their faith because they become outcast in their community for not being religious enough or not being seen in the mosque enough and so on. And this is how a lot of men just end up running away from their Muslim communities to live in areas where there aren't many Muslims or there are no Muslims at all. And ladies, this is why you don't find empath men easily, because they're not in these swamps in the Muslim communities. They don't belong there. They don't want to belong there. They don't want to be among men who brag about how much charity they gave when it's all come from haram money, right? It's come from charities they've scammed people in and drug money and so on. So a lot of these people have driven good Muslims out of Muslim communities. And of course, women do this to women as well. So you might find yourself in a environment where women are very judgmental, they're very harsh, they might use black magic, they might use all sorts of things and manipulations to make you hate being in a Muslim community. You hate the drama, you hate the chaos, you want to run away from all the negativity and toxicity of, this environment. So it's very rare to find high value empaths in these communities. They're either hidden and they do their own thing, or they move out, they move away. Now, going back to the childhood trauma and, having family members who bully you and all of that, if you internalized the childhood programming of all the bullying and all the negativity that was thrown onto you, and you carry that into adulthood, that's when you become a toxic codependent or a narcissistic individual. So you believe everything that your toxic parents told you or your siblings told you, that you're problematic, ugly, stupid, not loved by Allah, you're going to hell, all those things. If you internalize it, unlike the empath child, then what happens is you start to build your character on those beliefs. So you grow up hating yourself and believing you're destined for hell. So you've got nothing to lose now, and you become the worst version of yourself. And that's why you're so toxic. It starts from there. So what you internalize from your childhood programming is who you become later if you take it with you. And this is why so many narcissists deep inside, even if they appear to be so religious, so pious, so Salafi, so Sufi, they actually hate Islam. They fake being religious because deep inside they carry the childhood programming that they are going to hell, that they are worthless, that they're stupid, that they're not clever, that, Allah doesn't love them, because they were always told that by their parents and their siblings and their aunties and uncles and so on. So they have a resentment towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they've always viewed him as tyrannical. They've always viewed him as being a God who's not merciful and who isn't kind to them. So subconsciously, when they put on a facade of being religious, but they abuse people at the same time because they're taking advantage of their authority and whatnot, it's actually revenge against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, it's actually rebellion, because they want people to suffer in the same way they suffered as children and also as adults. So they want you to see Allah as tyrannical. They want you to see Allah as being unmerciful. They want you to see Allah as being a hateful God who has no care for you, because that's how they've always felt. So they need other people to feel the same way as them. So when they see people love Allah and they believe people are loved by Allah, it triggers them to the max. They get really upset, really angry, they get really envious. Like, why is it that Allah loves this person? Or how can you love Allah when I hate Allah? I don't like being a Muslim. I hate Islam. I hate everything about it. But it's benefiting me to look religious, because abusing people in the name of Islam is actually quite easy. And I can cause maximum pain when I abuse people who are God-fearing by using Islam, right? It's the best way, because at the end of the day, like I said, their victims are people who are practicing. So they have to put on the religious facade in order to catch their victims. Because if they don't, practicing people aren't going to look their way. They'll never accept them into their lives. They'll never be manipulated by them. They're not going to accept liberal or non-practicing people as life partners or friends and so on. So when the mission is to destroy your faith, they have to come across as being religious so they can get religious people. And while they're with you, and again, this could be any narcissist in your life, while they're with you, they have to make you see Allah in the way they see Allah. And they do this by making your life an absolute hell. They know you deserve the best of everything because you're a good person. They know you deserve a good wife. They know you deserve a good husband. They know you deserve to have good children and good parents. They know you deserve everything good because they can see that you have light, you have faith, you have morals. So they treat you in a way that makes you question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send me such a horrible husband or such a horrible wife? Why did He give me such horrible parents when I'm a good person? Why did Allah do that to me? Is this a punishment? Maybe He doesn't love me. And when you start to question these things, the narcissist will back you up. Yes, you see, you must have done something really awful in your life to have parents like that, or to be cursed with a husband like me, because they know they're horrible. They're like, this is your punishment. I've been sent as your punishment. What did you do in your life? So you start to think, yeah, maybe I'm not loved. Maybe I'm not religious. Maybe I thought I was a good person, but I'm not. Why is Allah doing this to me? So now you slip into the mindset of who? The abuser, the narcissist, the psychopath. You're now starting to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their lens. Okay? Now, sometimes when things go wrong in your life as well, for example, you don't get a job that you applied for, or you have a miscarriage, or you get sick, or a contract falls through, they're quick to jump on that train to remind you again and again and again that it all happened because Allah doesn't love you. So instead of you looking at it as khair and having that tawakkul, that no, it's not because it went wrong, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected me from something, they don't allow you to think that way. They laugh at you. They say, what do you mean Allah's protecting you? Allah doesn't love you, that's why He never gives you the jobs you applied for. You always have miscarriages. You always this, you always that. So slowly, what they start to do, as the shayateen they are, is take your tawakkul from you. So instead of you looking at things that go wrong in your life as khair, and you accept them, they plant seeds in your mind that things are constantly going wrong or not going your way because you are not loved by Allah. And this is where people start to lose faith. Especially when they see the narcissist get the things they want. Again, this is all a test for you, right? This is all a test of tawakkul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to get your tawakkul back quickly. So when that doesn't happen, you slip into this darkness where you struggle with your dua, you struggle with your prayers, you struggle with your fasting, because you're now starting to slip into the mindset of a narcissist. And you're starting to think in the way they do. This is how they think about themselves all the time. They believe that when things go wrong, it's because Allah is confirming that He doesn't love them. And they believe it because they know they're not good people. So with you, they know that you are good people, but they have to work extra hard to change your perception of yourself. So your identity can be completely eradicated with their gaslighting and manipulation. Because they want you to always believe that everything that goes wrong in your life is a punishment. And they'll only relax when you do that. So when you have tawakkul, when you say, no, it's not a punishment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, it happened for a reason, it happened for protection, they don't like it. They don't like it at all. They'll make fun of you and they will do whatever it takes to change your mind. And if you haven't already, please listen to podcast number 55, where I answer the question of why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow a narcissist to enter your life? And inshallah that will give you some clarity on why you had to have this experience with such an individual. Okay, it's really important that you listen to that one. Because many people have questions like, why would they leave me? Why did they abuse me? Why did they cheat on me? Why did they treat me so horribly when I'm a practicing, kind, loving, good person? I did all these things to please them and it was never good enough. I proved my worth time and time again by doing, this and that. I made extra efforts. I really went out of my way And it still wasn't good enough. That still happened to me. I prayed tahajjud. I made dua every night. I went for umrah. I went for hajj. I prayed during all the peak times when, dua is answered, and still nothing. So Allah must hate me. There's no point. There's no point in praying anymore because nothing works. My du'as aren't answered. I'm getting treated terribly by the people who are meant to take care of me, and I've done nothing wrong. So definitely, this is a punishment. But what you're not seeing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing you the reality of people, and He wants you to come out of being a people pleaser. You are chasing the approval of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been removing from your life time and time again, but you keep running back to them. You keep chasing those who Allah is protecting you from. You want their approval so much. He wants you to see that you are with people who are not good. He wants you to see your codependency. He wants you to see that this isn't a marriage, or this isn't a relationship, this isn't an environment you should be staying in. And the more Allah shows you, the more you panic and decide to prove your worth time and time again, and it hurts you even more the next time round because you're doing it for people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you wasting your time with. When you keep running back to prove your worth, it's more painful because you're not meant to be there. You're not meant to be doing this for those people. So every cycle is more painful than the one before. That's why when you get hoovered in time and time again, the cycle is worse and the abuse increases because they lose respect. Why would they respect someone who keeps chasing them after being abused? They will never respect you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps removing this person from your life, but it's you who's holding on. So you start to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His love for you when actually it's got nothing to do with that. It's about your codependency that Allah wants to bring to your attention. Because many people are so codependent on others, and this causes your self-worth to be attached to the approval of demonic people. And in the process, you will lose your commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So either you will stop practicing because of how this whole process is destroying your faith, or you're so codependent on these other people that you put them on the pedestal and they come before Allah. So this is when codependency becomes dangerous to your faith, when the approval of problematic people, or anyone for that matter, is more important than the approval of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of you. And when you don't take heed of the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to remove from your life, you will suffer in your life and you'll be miserable. Because being a husband or a wife or a friend to someone who is narcissistic or toxic is really difficult. And you start thinking, it's just too hard to be a Muslim husband or wife. It's too hard to be a Muslim daughter or son. It's too hard to be a Muslim businessman or whatnot. So if you are a revert, you might start thinking, my life before was easier. I didn't have to do all of this. It was easier to be a non-Muslim than a Muslim because you are holding on to the problematic people in your life. So for example, let's say a woman is married to a narcissistic Muslim man and his demands for obedience are too much. He's made life so unbearable for her, and she's constantly being told that if she doesn't obey every command, she's going to hell. So naturally she's going to start thinking, well, my life was better before. And she starts thinking about the Christian man she was married to previously, who never stopped her from calling her parents, who never stopped her from going to see her friends, who never stopped her from wearing red or blue. You know, there are some men who are so unbelievably petty in their demands, they make life hell deliberately for women. They take full advantage of this authority they have and they suffocate women. until women hate being married, they hate being wives, they don't want to be Muslim anymore. So lots of these women think, well, actually, I thought my previous marriage was bad, but this is on a whole other level, and I'd rather not be Muslim. If this is what it means to be a Muslim wife, if this is what a Muslim marriage is like, I don't want it. I don't want it at all. Get me out of here. So many women go back to their previous life before they converted to find peace and to find a normal life, because the Muslim husbands drove them out of Islam, and a lot of them love that. I'm telling you, if they are married to malignant men, that is a mission accomplished for them. It's a mission accomplished. They win when you leave Islam because of their bad behaviour and their envy. I'm telling you, so many people envy reverts for this new faith they have and their love for Allah and their love for Islam, because again, they don't have it. So they make it their prime goal to take that from you. They don't have it and they don't want you to have it either. That's what envy is. They want to take it from you, so you go back to being lost and misguided. You see? So reverts are always a prime target for narcissists and psychopaths, because this beautiful faith that you found, this love you have for Allah, oh no, they can't bear it. They have to take it. And unfortunately, so many reverts, they leave Islam and they go back to their previous life and they lose the jewels that they found. Because of who? Some demonic, envious person who drove them out of the faith. That's what happens. You can't let them win. And it's not always men who do this to women and women who do this to men. Sometimes it's women who are envious of reverts. Women who have been raised as Muslims all their lives, but because they never found faith, they never found a love for Allah, they never found a love for Islam, they target reverts and they pick on them and they're cruel to them online and they judge them and, they say all sorts of horrible things to make the reverts feel that they're not good enough as Muslims. Like, yeah, I had a really bad past, I did X, Y, Z. Yeah, maybe these women are right. Maybe I'm not good enough to be a Muslim. Maybe I should go back and live the life I lived before. When you get targeted and trolled online by Muslims as a new revert, I'm telling you, you've got to stick with your faith, because loads of demonic people will come out of the woodwork and attack you because they want that faith taken from you. They're not working on themselves to have it, and they don't want you to have it either. So everyone loses. So don't let them take away the gift of guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you just because they don't want to work on themselves. You trigger them, and you trigger them greatly. I remember seeing an Instagram post of a famous man who converted to Islam, and he went for Umrah and he had tattoos all over him. And the number of hate comments that were under the post was so disgusting, because all people were saying was, your Umrah is not going to get accepted. You're not a true Muslim because you've got tattoos. Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to care about his tattoos as a new Muslim who has decided to go for Umrah? What is wrong with people? And this is what I mean when I say that there are people who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw someone into hell because they have tattoos. And this person is a new Muslim. So when you see comments like this, you'll have an understanding of how these people perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if they believe that Allah is tyrannical and cruel, then you can't be taking, their opinions to heart. You can't be taking any Islamic information from them. You want to learn from people who love Allah so much and see Him in the best way. Unfortunately, so many people grew up with a toxic perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also Islam, because Islamic teachings were mixed with toxic, patriarchal and cultural ideologies and practices. And the majority of people who leave Islam are women because of toxic culture that's been mixed with Islamic teachings. So, for example, there's a huge emphasis on weak hadiths, toxic cultural practices in regards to women, and also problematic fatwas regarding women. And you also have problematic things like, being raised to be a slave to the men in your family or to your husband, and not being able to ask for a divorce, and not being able to complain, and not being able to go back to your family house if things go wrong. Women are conditioned to tolerate abuse, and they are raised to be slaves in many toxic Islamic societies and communities. So this is what causes a lot of women to run away and leave Islam. Because in many societies too, men can get away with so much that women can't. It's the same sin, right? They're both committing the same major sin, but women get punished for them and men don't. So when communities put problematic men on pedestals and they treat women like they're objects, or they treat women like they have no value, especially after 35, then of course it's to be expected that women will rebel, or they'll lose their faith, or they'll become atheist, or, do whatever it is that makes them feel free and happy. And that's why we have so many Muslim women joining the Western feminist movement, because they are so oppressed and treated so terribly in their own societies that it becomes the only escape. And they get slammed for that too, right? Dawah bros love slamming women for being feminist, but they don't address the toxicity that's driven women into feminism and out of Islam. And when I say feminism, I mean the Western understanding of it, which is to rebel against all male authority. Okay, so Islam does obviously promote women's rights and everything that many Muslim communities do not adhere to, but Western feminism is dangerous to the well-being of women, because they teach you how to compete with men, they teach you how to be masculine, they teach you how to live without men and all of that, and it's just not good, because it's had a counter effect as well on men, and it's made men more feminine, it's made them beta, because women have become more masculine. So Western feminist ideologies have ruined societies big time, and people are confused about their roles now. And that's why Western societies are such a mess. That's why it's hard to find someone to marry. That's why it's difficult for women to feel safe around men, because they have come from troubled backgrounds where men were abusive, men had taken advantage of their authorities, and so on and so forth. So there's an increase in women who don't want to get married, or they're too scared to get married, and there's a shortage of alpha men. So people have been focusing on the wrong problems, and I believe they should be focusing on the reasons why women have become so feminist and run away from their communities, their culture, and their religion. During my research, I saw lots of Muslim women convert to Christianity and Buddhism to marry empath non-Muslim men, because they can't stomach marrying any narcissistic Muslim man, because these are the men they're always coming across. They're not finding empathic Muslim men, so they are resorting to marrying non-Muslims and converting to their religions to be able to have families and children and all of that. So, this is a huge crisis. I remember speaking to a woman who said to me that she preferred to convert to Buddhism and marry a Buddhist man than to marry a Muslim from her culture who would tell her every 5 minutes that he wants a second wife, or who tells her every 5 minutes that she's going to hell if she doesn't obey him, and all of that. So she said she was divorced twice from 2 Muslim men who were narcissists, and she said, I can't do it again. She actually left Islam and converted to Buddhism just to have a better life. And this is really sad. And I've also seen other women do this after getting played by Muslim men. So, imagine a woman converts to Islam and she's so happy that she's going to avoid the whole dating nightmare of non-Muslims, and she's looking forward to getting married and having a family with a nice practicing Muslim man But all the men she's meeting are narcissists, they're predators, they're playboys who want to use her for sex, they want to use her to get papers, they want to use her to get a council house, they want to use her for her beauty and naivety, and they try to scam her into a dodgy nikah. There's no wedding, there's no walima, there's no nothing, because they are banking on her not knowing her rights, including her right to a decent dowry. So these women think, I was better off where I was. At least men didn't use religion to manipulate me. Those men weren't religious, they were playboys, but at least they didn't use God. And at least they were upfront about what they wanted. Unlike Muslim men on apps like Muzmatch, where, they pretend to want marriage, but as soon as they meet you in person, they try to sleep with you and all sorts. A lot of women, they think, I was better off in my non-Muslim community. And that's why so many women go back. They go back to their previous life because they don't see any improvement in Muslim communities. They don't see anything different. They don't see anything better. They've gone to the same swamp. But this time it's worse because Muslim men are using Islam and the God card, which is even more offensive. So it's not just reverts, it's Muslim women in general who are so fed up of dealing with Muslim men who don't honour Muslim women and Muslim men who don't want to get married. They're so emotionally unavailable, they're man-children, they're narcissists, they're mummy's boys, I could go on and on and on about this. So they decide to leave Islam. They're like, well, there's no hope. We will never get married, we will never have families, we will never have children if we're going to hang around and wait for Muslim men to wake up and become decent. No, we're gonna get old. So they lose their faith and they go to the other side. And this is a result of Muslim men letting down women. They are driving so many women out of the faith. This is more common than you know. I can't tell you how many women I've come across who aren't Muslim anymore, who have married non-Muslims. They don't care if it's valid or invalid because they just want a normal life like everyone else. They compare themselves to non-Muslim women and non-Muslim men who just get to live a nice normal life. They have a nice normal marriage. There are empaths on that side and they've had to sell their faith to be among them. And that is really depressing because they shouldn't have to do that. But the circumstances in the time we live in is causing a lot of people to leave Islam so they can have an empath husband or wife or just live in a better environment. Even men are leaving Islam to marry non-Muslim women because it's so much easier and affordable to be with them. I've heard men say that it's too expensive to get married to a Muslim woman because the demands are too high. And women are asking for £50,000 dowries and big weddings and lots of gold and jewellery and a luxury honeymoon, holidays and a nice fancy house and a nice new car and a big allowance. How are they going to afford that in their 20s and 30s? It's not possible. And they worry that by the time they actually save to get married, they're going to be old and time has passed and they haven't had children. So they resort to marrying women who are not from the people of the book because these are the only women who are available and they're empathic. So, these are people who are polytheists because they worship Jesus, and I've done a podcast about this before. It's a huge problem where men are marrying women they're not meant to marry because they can't marry Muslim women, they can't afford to. And who pays the price of this? It's the children, because they're not raised by a Muslim mother, and this opens a whole can of worms. Okay, I've gone into all of this before. So can you see how Iblis is really working hard in our Muslim communities to drive people out of their faith? And it's mainly because people have normalized toxic behavior. So if people believe that the majority of people are toxic, they're not going to want to be Muslim or live amongst Muslims or even have hope and patience to wait for a good Muslim man or woman to appear in their lives. You can change your environment, that's not a problem, but don't lose hope completely that there aren't any good men and women, because there are. Okay? The lack of patience and you panicking about getting old is what's driving you out of the faith, and that's from your waswas. That's your qareen making you do that. So you've just got to be very careful who you associate with, who you socialize with, and who you marry. Because if you allow your loneliness and your desperation for marriage and a family to be the driving force behind you choosing a life partner, the chances are very high that you're going to end up with an abuser who will love bomb you and victimize you, because they can see, they can smell your vulnerability. They can sense that you are lonely and that you are desperate to get married. Believe me, abusers can pick up on that so quickly. So if you allow your loneliness to be that driving force, then you're going to go straight into the claws of someone who will completely take advantage of that. And before you know it, you're being abused in every way, especially the religious way, if you are practicing. And that's where the brainwashing starts. So for example, let's say you went to a birthday party. They'll say, oh, you're a kafir. You're a kafira. You've gone to a pagan party and it's haram, and now you've majorly sinned. And they hold it over you. Something small like that. It could be your nephew's birthday party. They'll hold it over you. They might not even let you go. They might not let you attend any of your nephew's and niece's birthday parties because they believe it's a major sin. And they might say that you're not a sincere Muslim because you listen to music here and there, or you listen to certain sheikhs they don't like. Mufti Mink and Umar Sulaiman are huge ones. I have seen people divorce over this because the husband absolutely hates those preachers and the wife likes them because they're empathic and they're kind towards women. So they fight over it, and then the husband discards her on the grounds that she is deviant for listening to empath preachers and sheikhs. Oh, good riddance. That discard is the best thing that happened to her, believe me. And it doesn't end there. Oh no, they'll tell you things like, Allah might have wiped away all your mistakes from your past before you converted, but I won't. I don't forget. I'll always remind you. Oh, they do that too. You've got to be very careful as a revert when you marry somebody, because they can use your past against you. And if you're not a revert and you tell someone about your past, they can use that against you as well. I've mentioned that a few times before. Sometimes they'll say things like your parents did a terrible job of raising you if you refuse to be a slave. They're like, hold on, your parents were meant to raise you as a slave to prepare you for me. They didn't do that. They did a terrible job. And they'll go on and on and on and on about it. Sometimes they'll say, your prayers aren't going to be accepted because I'm not happy with you. Parents are notorious for saying this when they're narcissistic, and husbands as well. And sometimes they'll tell you that the abuse they inflict on you is what you deserve. So that's their punishment for you for doing something that they don't like. So they justify the abuse by using a very distorted and twisted understanding of hadiths and Quran verses. And women do this too. Women can manipulate men into believing that they're doing something Islamically wrong when they're not. For example, the husband wants to divorce or he wants to leave, and she's like, no, if you do that, Allah's not going to be happy with you. Allah hates divorce. If you do that, then I'll never forgive you. I will die and I will never forgive you on the Day of Judgment. And if you're a revert, you're going to get scared of that. You're going to worry that you're doing the wrong thing. So you get manipulated into staying into a marriage you don't want because she's taking advantage of your naivety. She's taking advantage of your faith and your fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she says things like that. How can you leave me when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted me to you and Allah's given you a wife and you're just going to turn your back on your ni'mah, on your rizq, and you think Allah's going to give you better after that? No, you're supposed to tolerate me. You're supposed to put up with my garbage. And men do. A lot of men do that and they're stuck. So it doesn't just happen to women, it happens to men as well. Especially revert men. A lot of women target revert men who don't know their rights and who can be easily manipulated if they're empathic. Men have to be careful as well. So all of this behaviour can drive people out of the faith. So it's not a problem within you. You have just fallen for the tricks of the shayateen. This is how they get people to leave. This is how they push people out. And you've just conformed with that. Okay, it's not because you're a bad Muslim. It's not because you have no faith at all. They have managed to manipulate you to a very deep level to make you feel unworthy as Muslims. So you leave, you think, what's the point? But they target you for a reason. A lot of narcissistic Muslim women can't marry men from their communities because they are known to be toxic, or they know that the Muslim men whom they like from their communities wouldn't put up with them. They wouldn't tolerate their rubbish. So they target revert men. Okay, they're naive, they're innocent, they're sweet. These men don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about their toxic culture. They don't know anything about their background and their upbringing. And that's why revert men are huge targets for narcissistic, cultural Muslim women. Please be careful. Because the same way revert women are targeted by narcissistic Muslim men who no one wants in the community, men are too. Okay? And before you know it, they start to belittle you as well. They're like, you don't even read Arabic. You haven't been Muslim for very long. I'm a better Muslim than you. I'm more practicing. I can do this and I can do that. So they start to look down upon you to have control and power. A lot of people, a lot of men, they marry cultural Muslim women from South Asian backgrounds, Arab backgrounds and so on, because they're pretty and they're exotic and they feel lucky to have them. Oh, I've got a wife who speaks Arabic, or I've got a wife who was raised as a Muslim all her life. And you get charmed by that, but you don't look at who she is as a person. You don't spend long enough getting to know her. And these women will rush you into a nikah, okay? They will rush you into a marriage before you pick up on all their red flags. So they will do this in the name of them being, practicing Muslims and wanting to make it halal as soon as possible. A lot of people rush reverts into quick marriages. You've got to be alert about this. You've really got to open your eyes and be awake, because this happens a lot. I used to work in an Islamic cultural centre. I was in charge of the revert department, and believe me when I tell you, I have seen everything. And I've seen how people take advantage of new Muslims who don't know their rights. They don't know anything about Muslim culture. They have no idea about Narcissism. And they hate Islam after marriage because of what they see. The in-laws, the society, the toxicity of the wife, the toxicity of the husband. They're like, what the hell have I got myself into? What kind of society, what community is this? This is hideous stuff. So you've got to do your research before you get married to anybody. Don't jump into a marriage just because you're hounded by loads of women who want to marry you, or because you get loads of proposals from Muslim men. Take your time in your faith, in your journey, before you even consider marriage to a Muslim. You've got to study everything before you do that, because you can lose everything if you marry the wrong person and they drive you out of Islam. If you associate Islam with their behaviour, you're not going to last long as a Muslim, and you will lose that beautiful guidance from Allah. Okay? Lots of people will try to control you, and also recently practicing Muslims. So you get Muslims who are raised as Muslims, but they've only started practicing recently. If you marry the wrong person, they're going to use that against you. They will say things like, oh, you've only just recently started practicing. You think you're all high and mighty. You think now because you're praying, you're better than me. You think because you're learning Arabic or learning how to read the Quran, you're better than me. And they keep drilling that into you until you hate it. You don't want to read Quran anymore. You don't want to pray anymore. You don't want to go to the mosque anymore. You don't even want to wear your hijab anymore, because they ridicule you. Okay, they want you to take it off. They don't want you to advance and become better than them. They can see that, your faith is better than them, it's stronger than theirs, you're being a better Muslim than them, and they have to stop you. Like, no, you can't be better than me. I have to be better than you. I'm the born Muslim. I've got to be better than you. I've been practicing longer than you. I've got to be better than you. I will always be better than you. I will always have the upper hand. I will always tread and walk all over you to prove that I'm better. So that's how they drag you down. They don't allow you to elevate. They don't allow you to grow in faith. They don't allow you to become better Muslims because they have to be the best at all times, in every area, in everything. So these are people who don't know how to treat our new guests to Islam. They're just on a satanic mission to keep them out. If they can't control you, they will do everything in their hands to drive you out. Until then, they will take advantage of this new faith you have and your fear of Allah and your love for Allah. They will take full advantage of that. They will milk it until they can't control you. And when they can't control you, that's when they'll start their project of driving you out of Islam and making you hate everything about it. And this is then followed by a discard. Okay, this is when they'll divorce you. This is when they'll kick you out, and so on. So, God help you if you want to start teaching Islam as a revert. They're not going to let you do that. And they'll even drag your family into it. Your kafir family this, your kafir family that. You'll always be a kafir. You're past this, you're past that. Even if you're not from a non-Muslim family, they might bring up the mistakes of your brothers, of your sisters, things that they've done. They'll always bring them up just to keep you down, just to keep you where they need you to be, in a state of low self-esteem and low self-worth, so that whenever they want to hoover you, you'll come back, and whenever they want your compliance, they'll get it. So be very aware of this. A lot of people know that they have married people who are far too good for them, and that's why they ruin your self-worth and shatter your self-esteem, because they need to feel better about having you. You are too good for them, and they are too dark inside to even be deserving of someone like you. So if they can bring you to their level, they'll feel better. All right, be aware of this. And also, I'd like to make a note here that there are some reverts who bully other reverts as well, because they are narcissistic and psychopathic. They are horrible to Muslims who have been Muslims all their lives, and it's because they get involved in gangs, in narcissistic Salafi groups. They have a Khawarij mindset, and they hate women. They join the Red Pill movement, and they hate all the empathic preachers as well, and become worse than the uneducated and most backwards sheikhs and preachers from your home village in South Asia and Arabia and all of that. Like, you just wonder, how did this person who was raised in the West become worse than our village mufti back home, who is known to be a criminal and paedophile and everything horrible? And it's because of the people they associate with when they convert. And a lot of these people convert in jail. And if they don't convert in jail, then they just get sucked into the whole Khawarij, mindset, because these are the first Muslims they come across when they're given dawah. So this is who they learn Islam from, and they develop an attitude towards other Muslims, and they're judgmental, and they're just awful people. I come across them sometimes online, and you just think, may Allah help you, may Allah guide you and heal you, because you are not okay. And they're very hateful. They use Islam to project their hate onto other people, but you can tell, because of their understanding of Islam and their distorted perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the belief is not in their hearts. They are dark people inside who don't like Islam, but they're using Islam to punish everyone else. So I've mentioned that before. But I just wanted to touch upon that, because not all reverts are nice people. There are lots of reverts who are also amongst the worst of the abusers. So be careful when you marry reverts as well. Some of them have serious mental health problems, and they could turn your life into an absolute nightmare. Okay? So be aware of this, and be aware of people who always want to give you nasiha, advice, and they're always lecturing you about things, and they look down upon you or get angry if you don't follow their ways. There's no support, they're judgmental, they might cast you out of their community. You're always looked at in a certain way because you're not like them, you don't dress like them, you don't talk like them, you don't think like them, and there's no fun, in that type of Islamic way of life. Everything is haram, everything is a major sin, and you're branded as being a kafir or a deviant or, whatever it is, if you're not following the ways of certain people. So this lack of fun and enjoyment in being a Muslim can drive many people out of Islam as well. Because life becomes too hard and depressing, there's no joy, there's no flexibility, and everything is black and white. A lot of people can't live like that, so they leave altogether. Like, you know what, forget this, I do not want to be a Muslim, I cannot live in a Muslim community, get me out of here. And they change their identity. They lose their families, they lose their faith, they lose their culture. They just go to a completely different environment to wash themselves of any association with their previous Islamic group or cultural group, because they hate who they've become by belonging there. And they take with them the belief that Muslim culture and communities and Muslims in general are horrible people, especially if they see practices like black magic, lots of abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse from a young age, crime, drugs, and it drives them to become atheist, or they're drawn to other faith groups that appear more appealing and welcoming, like, Christian groups, for example. The majority of Muslims who leave Islam tend to join Christian groups because they're kinder, and they're not like Muslim missionaries. When they give dawah, they're very loving, kind, peaceful, they're calm, and they prefer to be among the Christians. And also monks and Buddhists, that's a new trend now, because they're calm and nice people, they're empathic. Now obviously, Christian groups have their issues as well, they've got their own narcissists and psychopaths, as do Buddhists, but Muslims are drawn to the first empaths they come across in other faith groups. Okay, so they will also have lessons to learn when they get deep into those groups, but I'm just talking about the onset of things. When they first meet empathic people from other faith groups, they are quickly drawn to those people. So they just want to be as far away as possible from extremist, judgmental Muslims who are abusive and hypocritical and toxic. And again, it's mainly women who run away and join other faith groups, especially if they've been through physical abuse in their communities. So that could be sexual abuse or physical violence at the hands of malignant male relatives and husbands. So those are the primary reasons for people losing their faith after and during narcissistic abuse. And of course, on a much larger scale, there are people who lose their faith because of what's happening around the world. So if we're looking at what's happening in Palestine and other Muslim countries, the fact that Muslim leaders have let us down so badly is a great cause for people to lose their faith, because they keep asking, where is Allah? Why is Allah not doing anything? Why are the leaders allowing so many children to be bombed and killed? So questions like this can cause people to leave as well. And this is narcissistic abuse on a psychological level. And I explain this in detail in podcast 60. And the title is Islam Teaches Us How to Protect Our Mental Health in Times of War. So if you're struggling with what's happening around the world and you are losing your faith as a result of that, please listen to podcast 60 and inshallah that will help you. And if you're someone who is experiencing domestic violence, or you've been a victim of, honor crimes, please listen to podcast 57, which has a title of God Will Always Rescue the Empaths Who Call for His Help. So unfortunately, honour killings have been a huge reason for lots of women to run away from Muslim communities, marry non-Muslims, and live as non-Muslims. Okay, all of these toxic practices that come from toxic patriarchal societies have driven many people out of Islam. And this includes this trend of having secret wives and exploiting vulnerable women in marriages that aren't even valid. So lots of women are being scammed out of their rights by involving themselves in polygamy with narcissistic men, and it's one of the causes of them being driven out of Islam because of how badly they are treated and taken advantage of. And you also have this trend of the secret second wife, the secret third wife that dour bros are promoting at the moment. So, being in polygamous relationships is glamorous. So a lot of women are resenting their husbands getting secret second wives because it's seen as something appealing. And they just think, well, I'd rather be married to a non-Muslim, or I'd rather not be Muslim at all than have to deal with a husband who is continuously speaking about wanting a second wife or going out of his way to get a secret second wife. And you find out years later that you've been living a lie. He's had a double life. He's got other children that you have no idea about. And you just think, I'm just better off with a non-Muslim. Why am I losing my faith and my health and everything that comes with it for someone who's meant to take care of me and my iman? No, I'm actually safer with someone who's not a Muslim, but he's got empathy and he's got morals and he's got more Islam in him than the Muslim men of today. So a lot of Muslim men are not safe to be with anymore. And this is why there are so many women who are leaving Islam. It's not something that's talked about, but it's happening. It's happening all over Arabia. It's happening in South Asia. It's not just in the West. Women are leaving Islam in big numbers because they can't handle the Islamic tests that are being placed on them by narcissistic people. So it's already hard living life, right? You've already got the hardships that come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you're dealing with the hardships that narcissists put on you as well, and they make marriage hard, they make parenting hard, they make being a son or a daughter really difficult, they make it really difficult to be a decent human being who just wants to please Allah. When they are placing all the hardships on you as well, on top of everything else you're dealing with, on top of all the mental health issues you're getting from watching Gaza burn and, Muslims starve and all of that around the world, when you're dealing with people who are adding fuel to the fire in your hardships, you can reach a point of despair. And loads of people just abandon Allah, they abandon their religion, they abandon their old identity to run away and find peace elsewhere. They want answers elsewhere. Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through all of this? Why have I been cursed with the presence of these vile, ugly people in my life? So when you don't have the answers, you go through a silent struggle because it's very difficult for you to open up to other Muslims about losing your faith or telling them that you've left Islam or you want to leave Islam. You worry about the judgments and opinions of other people, so you stay silent. And this eats at you because you really don't know who to talk to. And many people turn to non-Muslim counsellors who won't be judgmental of them. And these non-Muslim counsellors encourage them to do whatever feels good. Do whatever's right for you. Whatever you feel is best for your life, you do that. If leaving Islam is what you want to do, then do it without feeling guilty. That's what they'll tell you. But the guilt will eat at you because you know something's wrong. You are confused and now you have to live a secret life because in your heart you're no longer a believer. So you live as a closet apostate, but you have to show that you're Muslim to everyone else. And there are lots of people who are living like this because they worry about the backlash they'll receive from their communities and families if they were to tell them that they're no longer Muslim and they no longer believe and they want to marry a non-Muslim and move away and whatnot. So I'll come on to this issue shortly, But before I do, I just want to remind you of something important, and that's, I've spoken about it before, that even the best of people struggled with narcissists and psychopaths, and they struggled with their faith, and I'm speaking about the prophets. Okay, the Sahaba, the Sahabiyat, the Khulafa ar-Rashideen, all of them struggled with their faith. I mean, look at how the Prophet ﷺ struggled with the people of Quraysh. They disrespected him, they ridiculed him, and these are his own people. They put sieges on them, they tried to starve them, kill them, and they were the cause of many of the hardships of the believers. But they stood firm, and because of them holding tightly onto their Iman, we have the Islam we know today. And look at the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam, who got rid of Yusuf alayhi salam out of their own envy. And they didn't care what impact that would have on their father, who cried so much until he turned blind. So you'll always have people like this in your life. The best of people will always have demonic people around them. The people of Yunus alayhi salam made him run away. He ran away from his people until he landed in the belly of a whale because he couldn't handle the hardships. He really struggled with the narcissistic people in his community. And look at Maryam alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her the hardship of being pregnant while unmarried and her fearing the people. What on earth is she going to say to the people? She worried about their judgments. She knows how harsh they are. She knows what the men are like with women who get pregnant out of wedlock. She knows the fate of women in her society who are deemed to be immoral. So she really struggled with this trial in different ways, spiritually, physically, because of the pain of labour, and also socially. She worried so much about her reputation and her fate with the people. In Surah Maryam, verse 23, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَجَاءَهَا الْمَخَاضُ إِلَى جِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا. And the pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a palm tree. She said, "Oh, I wish I had died before this," and was in oblivion, completely forgotten. So sometimes your pain and your hardships and your trials with other people who inflict abuse on you and all of that can be so deep that it causes you to prefer a disconnection from this entire dunya than to have to deal with what you're going through. For example, the regret of marrying someone who's made your life a living hell. Some people wish for death because life is so unbearable in that marriage. Life is so unbearable with those parents and with those siblings. Life is so unbearable in that community, so people wish for death. And if they don't wish for death, they wish to leave Islam altogether and not have to deal with any of that. So it's normal for even the best of people to wish for death when they go through such difficult trials. And sometimes when you go for counselling and you tell your counsellor that, especially non-Muslim counsellors, that you are suicidal, they'll tell you to leave. And that's why so many people end up leaving, because they have the choice now between suicide and leaving Islam, leaving a Muslim community, leaving, my marriage and everything behind. So even the best of people wished for death when the trial was particularly heavy. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to her? And bear in mind that this verse in the Quran was about the labour pains. So she's struggling now with the labour pain, but remember, it's also everything else on top of that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَنَادَاهَا مِن تَحْتِهَا أَلَّا تَحْزَنِي قَدْ جَعَلَ رَبُّكِ تَحْتَكِ سَرِيًّا. So he called her from below her, and the he here could either be Jibreel alayhi salam or even Isa alayhi salam. Scholars differed on this. Do not grieve, your Lord has provided beneath you a stream. وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ تُسَاقِطْ عَلَيْكِ رَطَبًا جَنِيًّا. And shake towards you the trunk of the palm tree, it will drop upon you ripe, fresh dates. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling her here that the stream and the palm tree are her ease in the hardship. So Allah is not cursing her for wanting to die. He's not telling her off. He's being compassionate with her hardships. He's being compassionate with her pain. He understands her desire to leave this world than to have to deal with this hardship. So Allah is saying, it's okay. Just do this and everything will be okay. So He gave her instructions to deal with the pain. And subhanAllah, scientists have discovered that eating dates during childbirth will actually help you with the contractions. So everyone will go through their hardships, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to look at the tools you've been given to deal with them. So don't let anyone drive you out of faith. There's a reason for every hardship. She was pregnant with a prophet. She was pregnant with a baby who would bring miracles, who would set her free from all her fears. Her fear of her reputation being destroyed, her fear of what people would say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed Isa alayhi salam to speak as a baby to set her free from the judgments of people. It was the miracle. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always give you the tools you need, but people are impatient and they're quick to leave Islam. They're quick to abandon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and think badly of Him and leave their commitment to Him altogether. Right? We have a contract with Allah to worship Him and to love Him and to do right by Him. People abandon that contract when times get tough, when things get hard, and when demons are set loose upon them. Every good person in this world will have demons set upon them because they're after your iman and your empathy. So the quicker you understand this, the quicker you'll be able to reclaim your faith and understand what the game is. And you have to look at the tools in your life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you to deal with the hardship, because they are always there. And there's always a reason for your pain. There's always a lesson behind the presence of demonic people in your life. They're here to teach you things. They're here to teach you about your codependency. They're here to teach you about who not to be. You don't want to be like them. This is what would happen to you if you lost your faith. You'll be lost and misguided like them. You don't want to end up like them. This is what it looks like for people to have no faith and no fear of Allah, no love for Allah, no joy in their life spiritually. They're so disconnected from their spiritual side, from their soul, that it's made them so dark. Allah wants you to see what these people are like so you don't become like them, so you save yourself and your iman from ending up in the same fate as them. Okay, so we have to take lessons from the Quran to save ourselves and prioritize our iman. So when people drive you out of Islam, you can see now how they win. You can't let them win. Allah will always give you ways out and things to use to elevate you and make your life easier. There's always the ease in the hardship. The ease doesn't come after the hardship, it comes with the hardship, so you can deal with it. Even in the story of Asya, radiallahu anha, her ease was in the visions she saw of her house in paradise. So while she was being tortured, Allah gave her ease of the visions. This is your home in paradise. So even she had to deal with a psychopath, but Allah made it easy for her to go through what she was going through because she knew where she was heading. She saw the promise. She saw the reward for all her pain. Okay, alhamdulillah, a lot of us don't have to go through that kind of hardship. Our hardships in comparison, alhamdulillah, are a lot easier. So we have to take inspiration from these stories and these people who were promised Jannah so that we can elevate ourselves and we can escape the missions of the satanic people in our lives. We have to escape them. We've got to fight them and rise above them. And yes, you're not going to get miracles and dreams like the prophets did. Like Yaqub alayhi salam, he was comforted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the time of Yusuf's absence because he knew he was going to be a prophet. He knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was taking him away for a very good reason. So he accepted the qadr. But it didn't stop him from being upset, and that's okay. Allah allowed him to grieve. Allah allowed him to cry. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that Yaqub alayhi salam had already accepted the qadr. So this was just him being human now. So your faith is the most valuable thing you'll ever have. If you lose your faith, you lose everything else. Because everything in this life is tied to it. When you do everything in life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to earn His pleasure and to earn Jannah, then your faith becomes the catalyst for you to do so much good in the world. But if you have no faith, then you have different intentions for doing things and you don't get rewarded for those things in the akhirah. You might get rewarded for them in this world, but you'll miss out on the hereafter. Okay? So let's go to the subject of being a closet apostate and what that does to people. So again, this was a huge part of my research, and I was really shocked to find that so many people are living in fear because they worry about being harmed physically or even killed if people were to find out that they are apostates, they've left Islam, or they've married a non-Muslim. So some people have secret lives and secret families. They don't tell their families about them because they worry about what would happen to them if their fathers found out that they'd married a Christian or a Jew or a Buddhist or whatnot. So they're married, but their families don't know. They've got children and their families don't know. So this can lead people to live in so much resentment, anger, and anxiety, and also depression because they're living a fake life out of fear. They fear telling people about what they've done. And of course, this isn't healthy. Now, I'm going to tell you something controversial. Some people may not accept this, but this is the truth. There is no death penalty for apostasy in Islam. Because if there was, it would be mentioned in the Quran, and it's not. So taking the life of a human being is such a huge deal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if there was a circumstance in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits it, then it would have been mentioned, like hukm al-qasas, which means equal punishment. So if you go to Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 45, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ فِيهَا أَنَّ النَّفْسَ بِالنَّفْسِ وَالْعَيْنَ بِالْعَيْنِ وَالْأَنْفَ بِالْأَنْفِ وَالْأُذُنَ بِالْأُذُنِ وَالسِّنَّ بِالسِّنِّ وَالْجُرُوحَ قِصَاص فَمَنْ تَصَدَّقَ بِهِ فَهُوَ كَفَّارَةٌ لَهُ. We ordained for them in the Torah, this is the Torah now, a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a nose for a nose, an ear for an ear, a tooth for a tooth, and for wounds equal retaliation. But whoever waives it charitably, it will be an atonement for them. So in Islam, it's actually better to accept blood money from the murderer and his family than to kill the murderer, because it gives the murderer time to repent and to also make amends to the family. Maybe this murderer was mentally unstable. Maybe he had jinn possession. Maybe he had a moment of severe weakness where his anger took over him and he accidentally killed someone. Even if he deliberately killed someone, it's still better to take blood money. Now, the hukm al-qasas was put in place to stop people from committing major sins that would cause them to receive equal punishment. So when people know that they could get killed for murdering someone, the idea is that it would deter them from committing that major sin. Because not everyone is merciful. There have been families who have forgiven the murderer and they've accepted blood money instead of having them killed, and this is more pious in Islam. Okay, if you can forgive someone, especially when it was an accident, then there's reward in that for the family of the one who was murdered. Okay, and it's also da'wah for other people. Now, it doesn't mean that people should rely on the forgiveness of these families, no, because the fate of the person rests in the mercy of the family of the deceased. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to have that power. Do they accept the repentance or do they not? So when there are social issues, the hakim, the khalifa, the government, they are the ones who can stipulate the punishment for certain crimes to maintain social order, but they're not allowed to murder anyone. The only time killing someone is permissible is on the battlefield. So when you're defending yourself in battle, it's permitted for you to kill the enemy. And also in hukm al-qasas, if the family does not forgive the murderer. Okay? And there are rules for that as well. So the person can't be tortured, it has to be a quick death. And it's better than someone serving a 25-year or a life sentence for their crime. So prison is actually more unmerciful than being killed quickly for a major sin that the family hasn't forgiven you for. Okay? Now there are specific punishments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran to maintain social order and morality. So for example in Surah An-Nur, verse 2, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الزانية والزاني فاجلدوا كل واحد منهما 100 جلدة ولا تأخذكم بهما رأفة في دين الله إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر وليشهد عذابهما طائفة من المؤمنين. As for female and male fornicators, give each one of them 100 lashes, and do not let pity for them make you lenient in enforcing the law of Allah, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day, and let a number of believers witness their punishment. So again, this is to deter people from engaging in zina, because once that becomes normalized, well, we've seen what's happened, right? We've seen what's happened to our world and our communities and the ummah because of widespread zina. It's corrupted everyone. It's corrupted societies. It's so difficult to get married now because of this being normalized. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took zina very seriously because it cripples homes, it cripples families and marriages, and keeps people single for a very long time because they can get their needs met outside of marriage. So Allah has specified certain punishments in the Quran, but not the death penalty for anything. And there's certainly no stoning. In Surah An-Nur, verse 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ يَرْمُونَ أَزْوَاجَهُمْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُمْ شُهَدَاءُ إِلَّا أَنفُسُهُمْ فَشَهَادَةُ أَحَدِهِمْ 4 شَهَادَاتٍ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And those who accuse their wives of adultery but have no witness except themselves must testify in court and swear 4 times by Allah that they're telling the truth. وَالْخَامِسَةُ أَنَّ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And a 5th oath that Allah may curse him if he's lying. So when this happens, he's immediately divorced from her. She's forever forbidden to him, and he has to pay her mahar. And if she does not defend herself, then she gets the punishment of zina, which is the lashings. There is no stoning. There's no stoning mentioned in the Quran. She is now subjected to the punishment of zina, the lashings. وَيَدْرَأُ عَنْهَا الْعَذَابَ أَنْ تَشْهَدَ 4 شَهَادَاتٍ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So for her to be spared the punishment of zina, she must swear 4 times by Allah that he is telling a lie. وَالْخَامِسَةَ أَنَّ غَضَبَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. And an extra 5th oath that the wrath of Allah will be upon her if he is telling the truth. Okay? It ends there. Where's the stoning? Where's the death penalty? There is none. Because now she's made an oath. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with her. So when the wrath of Allah comes upon the one who made an oath and testified in court, that could be anything. That could be her getting hit by a bus. That could be her losing her children. That could be her losing her health. She gets a terminal illness. It's up to Allah how he punishes her. Because she's escaped the lashings of zina and testified against the husband, saying that he's lying. Now some people might say, what about the hadiths about the stoning of women who committed adultery? They are all weak hadiths. And there are some scholars who say they are fabricated as well, because the Prophet ﷺ would never have allowed a woman to be stoned after she repented. And stoning was not Islamic practice. It was taken from the Jews. And what was written in the Talmud, that's how they used to punish people. So if it's not in the Quran, that's not a punishment you should inflict upon anyone. But misogynists and toxic patriarchal leaders, they like that because it kept women in order. So in Islam, when someone swears by Allah, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot inflict a punishment on someone after they've sworn on the Quran or sworn by Allah, because now that's between them and Allah if they are lying. You cannot judge what's in someone's heart or decide if they're lying or not if they've made that oath. So the punishment after that, if they're lying, is only left with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have no authority to do anything about it. And also, how likely is it for 4 people to witness the act of zina when you have no evidence? So when someone goes to court and complains about the wife committing adultery, in order for her to receive the punishment immediately without her having to make an oath, he has to produce 4 witnesses to the act. And if he doesn't, then he has to swear 4 times and then the extra 5th one. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would rather you repent and reflect on your major sins than be punished for them. But there are some instances where people will get immediately punished, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to teach them a lesson. So he allows 4 people to witness the act because this person thinks that they always get away with it. But if someone fell into a major sin, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be more compassionate with them and not allow the evidence to be present. However, some people do admit to the major sin and they take the lashings, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives them for what they've done. Okay, so if you're not lying and you accept the punishment, you accept the consequence, it's better for you than to have to deal with that later in life because you don't know what curse is coming your way or in the akhirah. Okay? So I wanted to make that clear before I move on to the verses about apostasy, for you to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and compassion when people are struggling with iman. So because faith is something internal that people don't see, there is no capital punishment for the absence of it, because only Allah knows what's in your heart and He knows what you're going through for you to be struggling with your faith. Okay? However, if you are married to someone and they tell you that they're no longer Muslim and they've stopped praying and they're living the life of a disbeliever, that's grounds for divorce. You actually can't stay with someone like that. It becomes an invalid marriage because you can no longer stay with someone who's a disbeliever. It's haram for you to be in that relationship. So aside from that, no one can really do anything about the faith issues you're going through apart from help you. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 108, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمْ تُرِيدُونَ أَن تَسْأَلُوا رَسُولَكُمْ كَمَا سُئِلَ مُوسَى مِنْ قَبْلِ وَمَنْ يَتَبَدَّلِ الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. Or do you believers intend to ask of your messenger as Musa was asked before? But whoever trades belief for disbelief has truly strayed from the right way. There's no capital punishment. Allah just says that they will stray from the right way and they'll go to the wrong way. Okay, Allah leaves them to stray because that's their decision. In Surah Al-Imran, verse 90, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بَعْدَ إِيمَانِهِمْ ثُمَّ ازْدَادُوا كُفْرًا لَن تُقْبَلَ تَوْبَتُهُمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الضَّالُّونَ. Indeed, those who disbelieve after having believed, then increase in disbelief, their repentance will never be accepted if they die. It is they who are astray. Okay, so again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes on them being astray. So they are alive, they are living their life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow them to see the consequence of leaving iman, leaving their faith, leaving what was good. Okay, otherwise how will they learn? How will they ever come back to Allah if they do not face the consequences of their actions? They left Islam and Allah wants them to see what life is like with no iman. So He leaves them to figure it out. Okay? In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 54, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَنْ يَرْتَدَّ مِنْكُمْ عَنْ دِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِي اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ ويحبونه أذلة على المؤمنين أعزة على الكافرين يجاهدون في سبيل الله ولا يخافون لومة لائم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. O believers, whoever among you abandons their faith, Allah will replace them with others who love Him and who are loved by Him. They will be humble with the believers, but firm towards the disbelievers, struggling in the way of Allah, fearing no blame from anyone. This is the favour of Allah, He grants it to whoever He wills, and Allah is all bountiful, all knowing. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't mention any death penalty. He simply says, I will replace them with better people. So the people who go astray will now have to see other people convert to Islam, come into Islam, find faith, and live better lives than them. And it's so that they can reflect. What did I do? What did I leave behind? If the most unlikely people are converting to Islam, what did they find in Islam that I didn't? Let me learn from these people. Let me learn from famous celebrities who are converting to Islam and finding so much solace and peace and beauty in it. Why did I leave it? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I mistook cultural practices for religious ones. Maybe I didn't learn with the right people. Maybe I let demonic people drive me out. Let me look into the stories of these converts and find my way back. This is why there's no death penalty for apostasy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace the people who leave with people who want to be practicing, they want to be close to Allah, they want to convert to Islam, so that the people who left reflect. That's the hikmah behind it. That's the wisdom. And how could there ever be the death penalty prescribed for those who left Islam because they were driven out by demons, or who did it out of ignorance, or who did it because of bad experiences, or not being educated enough in their rights and in Islamic matters and the Quran and the Sunnah? It makes no sense at all, because Allah knows the reasons why they leave. Allah knows the reasons why they're struggling with their iman. So there's no justice at all in prescribing the death penalty for anyone who says, I don't want to be Muslim anymore. So Allah allows you to leave. He allows you to go and see what the other side looks like. And He will give you lessons and experiences in that journey to help you come back. And those who come back always come back stronger. And I advise you to listen to the stories of converts, because it will inspire you to find that faith again and see the beauty of Islam and see what you were missing, see where you went wrong, see what happened to you for you to lose the faith that you once had. Okay, it's really helpful to listen to their beautiful stories. I love listening to them because it makes you feel so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are a Muslim believer and that you have that already. And it's just very inspirational and helps you to grow that iman. If these people who never knew Islam in their lives found it, and they're so happy with it, and their lives have improved tenfold with it, then why am I wasting this iman that I have? Why have I let it go to demonic people? Let me get it back. That's my gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why have I allowed horrible people to steal it from me? No, I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it stronger. And subhanAllah, that's what's happened during this whole war in Gaza. Look how many people left Islam because they asked the question, where is Allah? Why doesn't He help? Why doesn't He rescue everyone? And subhanAllah, at the same time, hundreds and thousands of people all around the world are converting to Islam. These are the replacements. Allah says to you, look, there are people who are inspired by the faith of the believers, and there are people who have lost faith in me because they can't see the bigger picture. So all of these conversions that have been happening during the war are a reminder of this ayah, this particular verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will replace you with better people who love me and who are loved by me. And I've read many cases online as well where these conversions have inspired ex-Muslims to come back. because they're thinking, wow, all these people who were anti-Islam before are now falling in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the people of Palestine, and everything Islam teaches us. It's made people think and come back. And lots of women who were raised as Muslims have started wearing the hijab because of how inspired they are by all these conversions, and they're thinking, well, we already have this. Why are we letting it go to waste? I have to reclaim that back. And believe me when I tell you, there are people who I've met who did convert to Christianity and they didn't see anything better there. In fact, they actually saw the mercy of Islam after they converted to another religion and they wanted to come back. They felt homesick. So it's really very interesting. And like I said, it's very difficult for some people to announce that they've left Islam or even come back from a religion that they converted to because their families won't accept them after their apostasy. But always remember that society will always judge you in a different way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges you. So don't ever feel like you can't come back. Don't ever feel like you can't get that faith back and live as a practicing Muslim again. Wallahi, you can come back 10 times better, 100 times better. It doesn't matter what people say or what they think. This is your life journey, and you have to do whatever it takes to die as a Muslim believer. You cannot leave this dunya being a disbeliever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept your repentance when it's too late. So make the effort to live as a Muslim believer and come back. Come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and see him as a merciful God. Of course, when you see him as a tyrannical God who kills apostates and, allows people to harm them just because they left Islam, of course you're not going to feel that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I've had to explain all of this to you, because it's important for you to see Allah's compassionate and merciful side. He doesn't punish people for leaving the deen. He allows you to learn a lesson so that you come back. And he will place hardships and trials in your new life outside of Islam so that you come back. Every hardship has been placed in your life to make you realize that your iman is the most important thing that you cannot let go of. Every hardship will bring you closer to him when you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this merciful way and understand that he's just guiding you. So he will allow you to stray temporarily. That's not because he doesn't love you, it's because he does. He wants you to see what you're losing. He wants you to see what the other side is like, because if you don't, you're not going to learn. It's that simple. Okay? So the hardships that increase after you leave Islam are not an indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is punishing you. It's an indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to bring you back because he knows why you left. Okay, you're not some evil person like, a pagan from Quraysh who is adamant on not believing anything. You're not believing in the miracles. You're not accepting the signs. You're not accepting the prophethood. You're not accepting, everything that Jibreel alayhi salam has come down with. You're not adamant on the arrogance. You have strayed because of what's happened to you. You are a victim of spiritual abuse. So everyone who's a victim of spiritual abuse will eventually come back, inshallah, if you learn the lessons. Okay, and the major lesson to learn is to never let anyone take away your faith. And you do that from your codependency. So when you start placing people above Allah, that's how you allow them to steal everything that's good about you and your heart that was always so soft, and your good character and your faith and your joy for life and so on. They will zap you from everything, even your health. Okay, your physical health, and I've spoken about that in the previous podcast. So let's have a look at another verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 256. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. Let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whoever renounces false gods and believes in Allah has certainly grasped the firmest unfailing handhold, and Allah is all-hearing, all-knowing. So again, this is confirmation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to make your own choices, and no one is to be forced or be put under pressure to be Muslim or to stay Muslim. So everyone, like I said, has their own life journey, and you will thrive as a believer and you'll suffer as a disbeliever. Okay, that's why there are so many people converting to Islam, because they want to end their suffering. And Allah knows very well that there are some people who have to learn the hard way. So you won't know what you have until you lose it. And that experience, that life journey in itself, is a blessing from Allah. It's a rizq, it's a gift, because He wanted you to understand the value of Iman and being the way you once were, and also the value of becoming better. So some people need to leave in order to come back better. So you can see how the death penalty and physical harm makes no sense and has no place in Islam whatsoever, because it goes against divine wisdom and Allah's mercy and also His love for His creation. So where did the idea come from that apostates must be killed? It originates in the story of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu after the death of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, when people started to rebel and deviate. So some people had associated Islam with the presence of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, so they stopped believing after he passed away. And some people were hypocrites, so they emerged after his death and they started to create new sects with new beliefs, and this was causing a huge fitna. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq launched the Ridda Wars, Hurub al-Ridda, which was the war against the apostates, because they started to attack the small Muslim community that was trying to grow. So this is when the Khawarij started to emerge, alongside people who pretended to be prophets after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. So to eliminate the fitna and to protect the small ummah, it was a very small ummah at the time, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and the Sahaba had to go to war against those who were causing issues. And it was because they were a threat to the ummah at the time. So if Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu did not do that, then there might not be an ummah today. Okay, he did that to protect the message of the Prophet ﷺ amongst the authentic believers. So many of those people were killed, and some of them managed to run away, and they ran away to different parts of the world where they started their sects. And that's why we have so many different sects of Islam, because they originated from the rebellion of these people. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq didn't go to war against people who decided not to be Muslim anymore. He went to war against those who were a threat. And in the time we live in, there is no threat to the ummah anymore. So for example, if people come out and claim to be prophets now, the majority of people will not believe them. You'll get a small group of people who will, but there are too many Muslims in the world now for it to be a threat. Okay, it's not going to harm the aqidah and the beliefs of the majority of Muslims. It might, like I said, affect a small number, but not the majority. So these people are just to be ignored. But khalifas and leaders and governments can issue punishments for those who disrespect Islam, but they cannot issue the death penalty, because like I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not permitted that in the Quran. So you can inflict a punishment on someone for disrespecting the Quran in public, or being a whistleblower, or, doing something so blasphemous, but you cannot issue the death penalty because you're not in a state of war. So yes, someone might cause a fitna. They might start saying things about the Quran and the Sunnah and the Prophet ﷺ that are untrue in order to influence people negatively, but the counter attack to that would be to educate people on what's correct. So instead of focusing on this demon and giving him or her so much attention, it's better to educate the majority of people about the correct understanding of Islam, and you'll benefit more people that way. Okay, the more attention you give to demons, the worse the fitna will be, because you're handing them so much power. You're giving them a platform to say what they want to say. You're giving them that attention. Okay, take away the attention, take away the power, and give it to the people. You don't have to listen to people who have a distorted understanding of Islam or a harsh understanding of it. Just ignore them and move on. Don't give them your attention. Don't comment on their posts. Don't get angry. Don't get riled up about it. Just ignore them and move on. Because the more attention they get, the more exposure they'll have, and that's how the fitna spreads. Okay? A prime example of this happening was back in 1988 when a man, he is a British and American Indian novelist called Salman Rushdie, published a book called The Satanic Verses. He's an open apostate from Islam, and he made headlines by calling the Quran the Satanic Verses. And this caused a huge uproar amongst Muslims back in those days because of what he said about the Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ. So he's a staunch atheist, and you can tell from his face he's very demonic. He's not a nice person at all. And he wanted people to see the Quran in the same way he does. Remember what I said to you before about narcissists and psychopaths wanting everyone to view Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran and the Sunnah in the same dark way that they do, because they want everyone else to lose their faith. So when he released it back in that time, it was so offensive to Muslims that Al-Khomeini, who was the supreme leader of Iran at the time, he issued a fatwa calling for the death of Salman and anyone who was involved in publishing the book. And Salman Rushdie had to seek the protection of the British government, and I believe he's still here. But what I'd like you to notice is how insignificant his book is. People forgot about him. Islam is still the fastest growing religion in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people are still converting every year. So the death penalty is not needed for people like Salman. People like Salman are just used as examples by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of what not to be like. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that these people will never have power. They might have it temporarily. They might have some influence on a small group of people. But when the attention is taken away, they don't thrive. They don't win. And they can never defeat the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Anfal, verse 30, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ يَمْكُرُ بِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُثْبِتُوكَ أَوْ يَقْتُلُوكَ أَوْ يُخْرِجُوكَ وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And remember, O Prophet, when the disbelievers conspired to capture, kill, or exile you, they planned, but Allah also planned, and Allah is the best of planners. So those who plan to exile you from your faith can never win when you have a high level of self-awareness. Okay? So it doesn't matter what people say, what people write, what people publish, what people shout about. If you have a high level of self-awareness, they can never affect you, and they're almost too big for them to be that influential. So just don't give them your attention. There's no need for the death penalty. There's no need for anything like that. Just don't give them your attention, because there will always be people like this. There will always be people who try to be influential and bring down the ummah and corrupt Muslims and make them hate Islam, because that is their satanic mission. You get scholars who are like this. You get people who are politicians who are like this and leaders who are like this. But have they stopped the ummah from growing? No. Have they stopped people converting to Islam? No. So it's all about who and what you give your attention to. Okay? So before I end this podcast, I will give you a summary of tips that you can take and implement in your lives to reclaim your faith, inshallah. So the first one would be to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for losing your faith. Forgive yourself for doubting Allah. Forgive yourself for allowing a demon to steal it from you, and for letting yourself down. Okay, it starts with you forgiving yourself. And then you start to think better of Allah. I'd like you to start listening to stories of reverts and why they converted to Islam, what they learnt, what they found so beautiful about it, and be amongst people who have a very good perception of Allah. Okay, you need to change how you view Allah. Take away the tyrannical perspective and replace it with a kind, loving and merciful one. Okay? Another thing you can do is renew your shahada. It's never too late to renew it. You can renew it and start your life like a new Muslim. So start a fresh page and promise yourself that your faith will never be something you let go again. You also need to remove your faith and your good deeds from other people. So don't attach your self-worth and your level of iman to those around you. So for example, let's say you're married to someone and you always feel like you have an iman high when you're around them, and when they're not there, or if they abandon you, you lose that. That's not good. You need to assess who you've attached your iman to. Why is it that you feel more religious being around certain people than when you're alone? It means your good deeds and your identity and your faith don't belong to you. You need them to belong to you. So regardless of who stays or who leaves, they remain with you. Okay? It's important also to realize how much you've managed to overcome and what you've learned. So narcissistic abuse isn't just emotional pain, it's spiritual confusion, identity erosion, and it's a deep distortion of love. You came through all of that. I want you to look at everything you've managed to overcome, everything you've managed to survive, everything you've managed to handle, because Allah did not put you through anything you couldn't handle. So journal the experiences you had and journal the lessons that you got from them, and inshallah that will give you some clarity on where you went wrong. And of course, you need to seek repentance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So dedicate some time during tahajjud, during Friday prayer, during the prime times for dua, and seek sincere repentance from Allah for doubting Him, leaving the faith, wanting to leave the faith, and so on. Okay? You have to make a promise between you and Him that you won't abandon that again, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you to keep that promise. Okay, He will take away bad people from your life. He will adjust your life journey to that promise. And you have to do your part as well by blocking and staying away from highly problematic people. You need to leave toxic people behind. You need to try and get out of that toxic marriage. You need to start moving away to better environments to save your iman and save your health and who you are as an empathic, wonderful person. So you need to start taking action to protect your iman so that you never lose it again. So now you have the awareness, you can stay away from anyone who tries to steal your iman or attack it. Okay, and sometimes they do that by being judgmental, by being jealous, envious, criticizing you all the time, lecturing you, always giving you nasiha. Sometimes it doesn't come from a good place. You will know, your body will tell you, your gut will tell you when it's coming from a loving and genuine place in someone's heart. And you'll start to recognize when people pick at you just out of their own envy. All right, stay away from those people. And I also advise you to relearn about Islam from empathic preachers and scholars. Okay, stay away from people who make you feel Islam is problematic, who make you feel Islam is harsh and unfair and unjust. Go to people who resonate with your level of empathy and they have a loving perception of Allah and a loving perception of Islamic teachings. Okay, you feel comfortable, you feel joy, and you feel peace when you listen to them talk about Islam and when they teach you about your rights. You have to learn about your rights. Because a lot of people get conned and scammed because they don't know their rights. Research your rights into everything so that you'll never be taken advantage of again. And it also helps for you to keep the company of people you aspire to be like in faith. So be around people who have a higher level of faith than you, because they need to be better than you for you to be inspired. Right? You want to admire someone for the way they deal with their hardships and deal with life and their blessings and their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Learn from them. Don't compete with them. Don't fall into the trap of being envious of them. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts people in your life who have a higher level of iman than you, be inspired. Allah wants you to learn from these people. And inshallah, within a very short period of time, you'll be able to join them on the same level. Okay, we always need people to look up to. Even when it comes to your career, your work, in sports, in any activity you do, you want to learn from people who are better because you want to achieve a higher standard for yourself, right? You won't feel a sense of achievement if you're not learning from the best. If you're not learning from people who have already achieved what you aim to achieve. There's a beautiful dua that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, which is, Allahumma inni as'aluka sihhat imanin wa imanan fi khuluqin hasanin wa najahan yatba'uhu falahun ya'ni wa rahmatan mink wa afiyatan wa maghfiratan mink wa ridwana. O Allah, I ask you for the health of my faith and faith with good character, and salvation followed by success, your mercy, your wellness, your forgiveness, and your pleasure. So when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for iman, ask for good character as well. And that's why you need to be around people who have both a high level of iman and excellent character. Okay, because the two go hand in hand. So you need to work on elevating both at the same time to become someone who possesses the highest level of nafs. Okay, if you want a nafs al-mutma'inna, you have to work on your faith and your character. And your character will be refined with self-discipline and also your jihad al-nafs against your qareen and its whispers. Okay, so if you can overcome that, you'll be able to live peacefully and in the best way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'll end it here so it's not too long. I really hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I hope people will be inspired to make the efforts to reclaim their faith. Please do share this podcast with people whom you feel could benefit from this content. And thank you for listening until now if you're still with me. I would like to end it with a hadith that's narrated by Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, who said that the Prophet ﷺ would often say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinak. O turner of the hearts, keep my heart firm upon your religion. I advise that you read this dua in every sujood and every time you feel weak in your iman, and inshallah you'll never lose it. Faith is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to really look after it. We need to work for it and make the needed efforts to keep it. Okay? So may Allah bless you. I really do pray this helps. And thank you again for your time. Until the next podcast, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.